Let's get right into it. Number 10. Curing madness with a drill. Imagine you're in ancient times, lying on a rough wooden table. A guy in a robe, definitely not wearing gloves, leans over you with a rock and a stick. He's about to drill a hole in your skull, and the best part, he swears it's for your own good. Welcome to trepanation, one of the oldest medical treatments known to humankind. For thousands of years, people thought mental illness, seizures, and headaches were caused by evil spirits trapped inside the skull. The solution? Obviously give those demons an escape route. Archaeologists have found skulls from as far back as 7,000 years ago with neat little circular holes carved into them. Some of those skulls even show signs of healing, which means people survived this. Think about that. Someone got their skull chiseled open with a flint knife and said, "Yeah, I feel way better now." The Greeks did it, the Incas did it, even European surgeons were still doing it in the 1600s. Of course, by then they claimed it was for releasing pressure or balancing humors. But let's be honest, those were just fancier ways of saying we have no idea what's going on. Eventually, modern medicine realized you can't fix depression with a power tool, but trepanation never fully disappeared. Some alternative healers in the 20th century revived it as a spiritual enlightenment thing, because apparently nothing says expanded consciousness like drilling a ventilation hole in your brain case. Punchline: for centuries, humans believed the cure for bad vibes was a literal hole in your head. And to be fair, it probably did stop your headaches because you no longer had thoughts. Number 9. The arsenic diet plan. Once upon a time, thinness wasn't just fashionable, it was deadly. In the 19th century, some genius realized that arsenic, yes, the poison, could make people look healthier. So naturally, it became an ingredient in beauty tonics, complexion wafers, and even diet pills. Arsenic gave people a slightly flushed face, shiny hair, and that glow that only comes from slowly dying. People didn't know it was toxic, they just noticed it made them look lively right before it made them look dead. Doctors back then were so sure this was fine, some even prescribed arsenic for anxiety and fatigue, because if your nerves are shot, why not nuke them? Meanwhile, in Victorian Austria, farmers noticed their livestock gained weight when fed trace amounts of arsenic. So humans did what humans do best, copied the animals. People in rural areas began microdosing arsenic to boost appetite and increase energy. Technically, it worked right up until your internal organs mutinied. By the early 1900s, science finally caught up and said, hey, maybe we shouldn't snack on rat poison. But the damage was done. Punchline: these people weren't dieting, they were disappearing. Number 8. Mercury, the miracle metal. If you lived in the 18th or 19th century and had basically any medical issue from syphilis to sore throat, there was a 99% chance your doctor prescribed mercury, the same stuff that today makes us panic when a thermometer breaks. Mercury was seen as this magical purifying substance. Doctors believed it could flush out disease by making you sweat, salivate, or vomit violently. In reality, it was just making you melt from the inside out. Famous victims, pretty much everyone. Lewis and Clark carried mercury pills on their expedition. Napoleon's soldiers were treated with it. Even the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland came from real hat makers who used mercury nitrate to shape felt, slowly poisoning themselves into tremors and insanity. What's wild is how long this lasted. Mercury treatments were still being used well into the early 20th century. The logic, if it makes you sick, it must be working. That's not medicine, that's Stockholm Syndrome with extra steps. Mercury poisoning caused tooth loss, tremors, hallucinations, and yes, death. But at least your doctor could confidently say your syphilis wasn't the problem anymore, because nothing works better than replacing one disease with another. Punchline: mercury didn't cure you, it just made sure your doctor's career had closure. Number 7. Tobacco for your lungs. Here's a fun one: doctors used to recommend smoking for asthma. Yep, burning leaves and inhaling the smoke was supposed to help you breathe. In the late 1800s, medical ads promoted asthma cigarettes that supposedly opened your airways and relieved coughing fits. Some even claimed they were non-addictive, which is the nicotine equivalent of saying this knife is child safe. And it gets better. During the early 1900s, doctors in white coats literally appeared in cigarette ads saying, "More doctors smoke Camel than any other brand," because apparently, credibility was just a matter of having a stethoscope around your neck. The science totally non-existent. Smoking dried herbs or tobacco gave a brief feeling of relief, like the airways were opening up, when in reality, you were just numbing your lungs. Long-term effects included, death. By the 1950s, the connection between smoking and lung cancer became undeniable, but the damage to public trust lasted decades. Punchline: they told people to cure asthma with fire. That's like fixing dehydration with salt water. Number 6. Electric shock therapy for everything. Imagine your doctor looks at you and says, "You're feeling sad, let's electrocute you." Welcome to the golden age of electroshock therapy, when zapping the human brain was the medical equivalent of rebooting Windows 95. By the 1930s, psychiatrists genuinely believed that passing electric currents through someone's skull could cure depression, schizophrenia, and even homosexuality. No anesthesia, no consent, just buzz. Patients would convulse so hard they often broke bones or bit through their tongues. And here's the weirdest part: it sometimes did help. Temporarily. Shocking the brain can reset certain neural pathways, but early doctors used it like a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel. They didn't understand why it worked, they just knew something happened when the lights flickered. The idea was that mental illness came from a misfiring brain, so the goal was to restart it. Kind of like when your Wi-Fi is acting up and you just unplug the router, except here, the router screams. Even Hollywood got in on it. In the 1950s, lobotomies and electroshock were trendy treatments in psychiatric hospitals. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest wasn't exaggerating, it was basically a documentary. Modern versions of electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, still exist but are way safer, controlled, and only used as a last resort. But the early versions, they were more like Frankenstein's lab meets mental health clinic. Punchline: when your doctor says you need to recharge, maybe don't hand him the jumper cables. Number 5. Bloodletting, the original detox. Long before detox teas and juice cleansers, doctors had a simpler plan: just drain you like a Capri Sun. For over 2,000 years, bloodletting was the medical cure all. Fever, bleed you. Sore throat, bleed you. Bad attitude, you guessed it, bleed you. The idea came from the ancient Greek belief in the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. If you were sick, your humors were imbalanced, and the best way to fix that was to release some of your precious life juice. Doctors used knives, leeches, and even horns to suck out pints of blood sometimes until the patient fainted. George Washington, for instance, got a sore throat. His doctors drained almost half his blood volume over 2 days. Spoiler, he didn't make it. And yet, people trusted this method for centuries because it looked like something was happening. The skin went pale, the fever sometimes dropped, and everyone said, "See, it's working." Meanwhile, your immune system was waving a tiny white flag. It wasn't until the 19th century that medicine finally realized bloodletting was mostly making people weaker. But even today, the phrase detox, your body feels suspiciously similar, doesn't it? Punchline: they thought losing blood would make you healthy. Technically, it did if your main problem was having too much life. Number 4. Cocaine, the doctor's darling. Before it was the life of the party, cocaine was the darling of the medical world. In the late 1800s, doctors prescribed it for toothaches, fatigue, and depression. Even Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, called it a miracle drug. Yeah, he was that guy. Cocaine was marketed as a harmless pick-me-up, available in tonics, cigarettes, and even Coca-Cola. Yes, the original recipe had real cocaine, so technically, your great-great-grandparents were doing lines at lunch without realizing it. Doctors believed cocaine boosted mood, sharpened focus, and cured morphine addiction. Spoiler, it didn't. It just made people incredibly confident about their bad decisions. Dentists and surgeons used it as a local anesthetic, which, to be fair, actually worked, but then patients noticed a slight side effect called ruining your entire life. Addiction, paranoia, and heart failure followed. But hey, at least you could dance for 12 hours straight. By the early 20th century, cocaine's dark side became undeniable and governments began cracking down, but for decades, it had the full medical stamp of approval. Punchline: when your medicine cabinet and a nightclub menu look identical, you might be living in the wrong century. Number 3. Tapeworm diet pills. Yes, this was a real thing. In the early 1900s, people desperate to lose weight actually swallowed tapeworm eggs because apparently the idea of a literal parasite living in your intestines sounded more appealing than exercise. The theory was simple: the tapeworm eats part of your food so you can indulge without gaining weight. It was marketed with slogans like "eat all you want and still stay slim." They left out the part about nausea, diarrhea, and occasionally dying from intestinal blockage. Doctors and pharmacists sold these pills in discreet packaging to upper-class women chasing the ideal figure. Nobody thought to question how bad it might be to have an 8-meter worm coiled up inside you like a demonic garden hose. And if you wanted to end the treatment, well, good luck. The worms didn't exactly check out politely. Some removal methods included swallowing poison or physically pulling the parasite out. Yeah, imagine your weight loss journey ending with a game of intestinal tug-of-war. Eventually, the FDA cracked down and declared the practice illegal, but not before thousands tried it. Punchline: they wanted a slimmer waist and ended up with an unwanted roommate. Number 2, radium, the glow-up that killed. There was a time when glow-in-the-dark didn't just describe your watch, it described you. In the early 1900s, radium was hailed as a miracle element discovered by Marie and Pierre Curie. It glowed beautifully in the dark, and everyone decided that meant it was healthy because, you know, nothing bad ever glows ominously. Doctors used radium in everything: water tonics, face creams, toothpaste, even condoms. Yes, radioactive condoms, because apparently radiation was rejuvenating. People would literally drink Radifor, a radium-infused water that promised to boost energy, restore virility, and make you shine inside and out. And it worked if your goal was to glow like Chernobyl. The most tragic part of this story: the Radium Girls factory workers who painted watch dials with luminous radium paint. They were told to lick their brushes to make finer tips, unknowingly swallowing tiny doses of poison every day. Their jaws eventually disintegrated. Their bones literally glowed in the dark. When lawsuits began, the companies insisted it was safe in small amounts, which, sure, if your definition of safe includes spontaneous bone decay. It wasn't until the 1930s that the public finally realized that radioactivity doesn't mean healthy energy, it means slow death by science. Punchline: they said radium made you radiant, and technically, they weren't wrong. You did emit light, just not the kind you wanted. Number 1, lobotomy, the ice pick solution. Ah yes, at the grand finale of medical nightmares, the lobotomy. If trepanation was humanity's first mistake, lobotomy was our sequel, bigger budget, worse script. In the mid-20th century, doctors believed mental illness came from overactive connections in the brain, so one Portuguese neurologist, Antonio Egas Moniz, thought, why not cut some of those connections? And the world said, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Soon, American doctors, most famously Walter Freeman, started performing lobotomies en masse. His favorite technique: jamming an ice pick through your eye socket and wiggling it around until you were calm. No anesthesia, sometimes no consent, just a mallet and a smile. It became a psychiatric craze: depressed lobotomy, anxious lobotomy, moody teenager. Guess what lobotomy? Freeman even toured hospitals in his lobotomobile, performing the procedure in record time like some deranged circus act. At first, families said the patient seemed peaceful afterward, but peaceful often meant vacant, emotionless, and permanently damaged. Many patients never recovered their personalities. Some died. By the 1950s, new psychiatric drugs made lobotomies obsolete, but by then, thousands had been irreversibly altered, all in the name of modern medicine. Punchline: it turns out poking the brain with a kitchen utensil isn't great for mental health. Who knew? Let's be honest, medicine has come a long way, but history proves one thing: humanity's quest for health has always walked a fine line between genius and complete madness. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.